adopted by states. It's not...
It's just that sometimes they try to, or they are reluctant to really respect it.
Yes, but human rights, it's not a religion that exists like that in the air. Human rights is very concrete. It's text, laws, conventions which exist or do not exist, which are enforced or violated, right not to be tortured, right for children to education, right for a fair trial, for anyone, and this has been adopted by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights have been adopted by the huge majority of countries in 1948, including Nepal.
And hopefully it will be respected by countries all over the world. Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you very much.
That was François Zimeray, French ambassador at large for human rights. We talked about his observation on Nepal's human rights situation and what are the key issues we should be addressing during the times of transition as well. Keep watching Kantipur television. Thanks for watching so far. If I say Nepal is in transition, this would probably be the billionth time these words are used. If I say human rights principles have to be safeguarded during such times, it would probably still be an understatement. These are the times when we're trying to learn from practices of other countries as far as respecting human rights is concerned. It would still be cliché if I say the sooner we learn it, the better it is for us. And as the process continues, we've been having a lot of exchange on the issue of human rights with the countries that have a better system, or rather, better record of human rights. The latest in the series is French Ambassador for Human Rights, François Zimeray, who has been on a trip to Nepal now. Welcome to the show, Mr. Zimeray.
Bonjour.
How do you see this human rights as a medium of diplomacy? Because you're ambassador for human rights.
It's not the easiest task in diplomacy, I have to confess.
Because these are kind of opposite. A diplomat has to be very sweet. But human rights, when human rights issue is either black or white.
No, it's not. Yes, it's black or white, but you know, it's a very general aspiration. The human rights is a language which is understood everywhere. Even though it's sometimes very difficult to address some issues with some governments in the world, I have to say that it's more easy now because we live at an era of global information and everyone knows that all the peoples of the world share the same desire to have a minimum of respect. You know, human rights is not something complicated. It simply means respect. And this is a very general aspiration of all over the peoples, all over the globe. So it's more easy to me to raise this kind of issues than it was in the past. And also due to the fact that in the world many peoples are revolting now because they were deprived of the minimum elementary respect. This has sent a tremendous message to all governments of the world. They have to change. So it's more easy. But I don't want to bring it in a conflictual way. First, I have to say, and this is the most important thing to say as an introduction, that France has not the pretension to lecture the world in terms of human rights. And I have to confess that even though France is often seen as the country of human rights, I don't like this expression, and I don't use it. Why?
Why do you say that?
Yes, because first, in history, many countries have contributed to human rights, many civilizations. So one could challenge historically this position. And also, I don't want to give the impression that we are giving lessons to the world, and we would ask the others to accomplish efforts that we would not do on our own soil. We have problems in terms of human rights. We do have problems. We have been condemned by the European Court of Human Rights. France has been condemned quite often. So we are facing difficulties.
How does the government deal with it? Because at one point, let's talk about French government, where at one level you're appointed as an ambassador for human rights, which is to express that we respect human rights. And if a European court condemns you for any action, does the government go completely in a corrective measure?
No, it doesn't mean, of course, we know that we have some weaknesses, but we try to improve in order to reach standards which are in accordance with the idea we have of ourselves. So we are conscious of our weaknesses, but this is not a reason to abdict and to renounce doing efforts and asking others to participate to these efforts. So it would be an easy excuse to say, oh, they are disqualified because they are not perfect. Who is perfect? I don't know any democracy who is perfect in terms of human rights.
And one of the beauties of democracy is it's a evolving system.
It's always evolving, new problems arise, so we are facing difficulties, but also we have a long experience. I wouldn't say that France is the country of human rights, but I prefer saying that France and human rights are an old couple. And like in all couples, there are ups and downs. And we had ups and downs in our history. It's a
wonderful way of putting it.
And we learned from our downs as well as we learned from our ups. So we are, even if we face difficulties, we learn from that. And we don't pretend to lecture the world, and particularly we don't pretend to lecture Nepal, but to share experience.
Which could be very important in Nepal at this point. As I said, we are in transition time. You've been to almost entire globe, wherever there are conflicts. And going to such places where, and normally these conflicts happen, where the human rights record has not been good. Going to such places, do you draw parallels to your own experience in your own country? Because as you said, in France, we have to correct few things. Whereas in these countries, the situation may not be that good. Maybe there needs a drastic change in the way they approach human rights. How do you deal with it?
First, you have to know that even in the worst situations, when I go in countries which are not known for their human rights, but rather they are famous for their violations of human rights, I can find example of good practice. I'm also there not only to deliver message, but also to bring back inspiration to my country. And I also have to learn from the world. And even in very difficult situations, somewhere in Africa, in Latin America, I found very interesting things, elements of the society in terms of human rights, which I would like to bring back to in our society.
Can you share such
for example,
examples?
in our European societies, and particularly in France, the respect of old people is something we are losing. New generations are not anymore respecting enough old people. And this is a problem of dignity, this is a problem of human rights, a problem of respect. And I see that in many civilizations, countries could succeed, accession to modernity, and traditional respect for old people. A few years ago, in my country, we had a big problem due to climate change. It was very hot summer. And a lot of old people who were isolated because they had the family were not visited them. It was in August, it was very hot. They died, simply died, because of dehydration in a rich country, because they had no visit, no contact. So this is a problem caused, it's not especially for France, but the modern civilization is posing new problems in terms of dignity, respect, and human rights. New challenges. And I find, even in Africa, in many countries, that there are some aspects of... another thing, how in some countries they succeeded in solving conflicts by reconciliation. Mm-hmm. It's not an easy task. We have a lot. All the world has to learn from this experience in South Africa, for example. And this kind of example is spreading now.
Mm-hmm. And probably in South Africa, the condition was worse than what we have in Nepal. Mm-hmm. Can you draw any parallel? Because you've been in Nepal for a couple of days now. Can you tell us what is your overview from the people that you've met so far?
First, I have to say that I was extremely impressed by this very rich civil society full of defense of human rights, people that is putting their life in danger sometimes in order to defend the rights of all the elementary rights. And I do think that the role of the international community and the role of is to protect those persons. You have an extraordinary rich civil society which is an asset for Nepal. And I have been really impressed by the characters I met. You also have institutions. They are trying to do their best. I met with the chairman, for example, and the members of the National Committee of Human Rights, even though the recommendations are not always followed. They are doing a very important job. I do not pretend to make any judgment on the situation on human rights. Who am I to do that?
But your government has awarded a lady human rights defender.
This was very important for us because a lady has been awarded the first prize of French Embassy for human rights in Nepal. And she's not a known lady. She's not a part of the human rights or NGO establishment. She comes from a remote village in Terai province. She is 30 years old, and she is activist since for eight years now. She put her life in danger in defending women, defending children, with a lot of talent, involvement. And the role of international community, the role of France, is to recognize people like her, to encourage them, and to protect them if necessary.
One thing I would like to ask is, normally what we see is human rights defenders, they have a lot of complaint. They have a lot of complaint with the state because state mostly, they try to ignore, as much as possible within their own limits, they try to ignore human rights. And on the other hand, there is a way of rewarding people, which probably sets an example or positively reinforces the idea of protecting human rights. And as you also said, even in the worst of conflicted areas, you've seen good practices. How important is it to conserve or preserve good practices and not only complaining?
This is the most important, in fact, to put the light on good practices. And also we are talking about human rights, but